Hey everybody, Big Pete back here at 850 Armor Works. Today we're going to be working on the Adult Death Trooper belt. This one I kind of already have started. I'm going to be working on a fresh one. I just kind of wanted to show off a little bit of what we're going to be doing. This is just the rough part of the belt. We're going to start off just with some trimming. You're going to get 3 of these guys in the kit. These are just your cover plates for your belt boxes. So they just go right over it. They're not going to come looking exactly like this. They might come a little more like, with edges and, cut out like that. We want to sand these down or cut them down to about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch of space right here. So if you trim them down all the way, it won't kill anybody. It'll look fine. They just go over it. I prefer just a little bit of a return edge on here. This one's not the good one. I haven't messed with that one at all. This is about what I'm looking for. You can see how right here I kind of got a little crazy with the sander. It's fine. It'll be covered up. You won't notice it in the end. If you do really mess up, just sand everything down to about the same. I might end up doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and sand these guys down. You get 3 of them. You're going to get 2 boxes. These are just plastic boxes. We're going to put obviously these are going to not come looking like this. I've already finished these ones up. But you want to cut these down so that they're flat on the back. However that ends up being, make sure it's not, curling away from where it was pulled at. So mine are about 1 1/4 inches or so. Just make them look nice. So mine, like I said, about 1.25 inches. So go ahead and trim those guys down to that. Make sure it's nice and flat. If you got a belt sander, it's really easy to just kind of put it on the top to make sure everything's nice and flat. And then we're gonna back. You don't have to, but we're gonna back these with just a little block of wood in here, just to give it a little bit of rigidity, and then flatten that piece of wood back down if it's not perfectly fit in there. So we're gonna go ahead and trim everything down, and we'll be back. All right, so I got everything trimmed down real nice. Again, it's roughly about 1/8 of an inch or so. Yep, about 1/8 of an inch. But again, it's not that important. It's just gonna cover your boxes. I also went ahead and got 2 just blocks of wood, and I cut them down to so they're hidden behind here. That's just because we're gonna end up screwing these belt boxes into the belt themselves. Now if you wanted to do like nylon or something like that, you can get a piece of nylon, glue it from the inside, give it a loop around and glue it back down onto the bottom side so you can slide it onto the belt. Either way is fine. I don't like seeing the exposed nylon, so that's why we're doing the block method. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue these guys into here. And go from there. We also have our belt buckle. This is just a resin cast belt buckle, so it needs a little bit of touch-up work before you go ahead and put it on. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a good sand job, plane down any sharp edges down here. Just give it a good good sanding to get rid of especially some of the lines around the edge and everything, and make it look nice. And then I'm going to go ahead and rub and buff it, and go from there. I wanted to briefly touch on these boxes. These are functional boxes. They got some excuse me, got some Velcro on them, and they work just like a normal box would. You can go ahead, you can get these there's a couple different makers out there. I think Trooper Bay sells everything you need, but it's like $80 or something like that. It's kind of expensive. You can make your own if you'd like to. If you go check out my kids Death Trooper tutorial, I went over exactly how to assemble these for the kids dimensions. It follows the same way. You can check out that video if you're interested in learning how to make it. I'm not going to go over that in this video. These are my templates. Basically, I have the front flap and the back portion, and the back portion. You can get the dimensions off of the forums and everything, but the general concept of this is that you have this section right here that folds down and over and creates the back section of the box, and then the front section, this is the front section, then the back section does the same thing, and then you have the flap that folds over it. The flat part's going to be hidden completely under the box here, and we're going to just glue these suckers right onto it, and it'll look like that when it's done. You can use functional boxes, you can use a piece of wood, you can use a piece of craft foam, something like that. They don't need to be functional boxes, but I like functional boxes because you can keep your phone in it, keep different things you need. If you need to put a candy bar in there, you can put one of those in there. And it's nice to have functional boxes, but they're not required. So if you're interested in making your own, mine, the front flap is about 6 1/8 inches, so we got 6 1/8 inches from basically right here to right down here. So this little part right here. The width of the box assembled is about 1.25 inches. So this dimension right here is 1.25 inches. The width of everything is it's 7 millimeters, or 2 3/4 inches wide, and that's the dimensions of this section right here. And then each of these boxes is 1.25 inches by 1.25 inches. Give it a little bit of a triangle right there. That's all your front part dimensions. The back's going to follow the same way, 1.25 inches for this section right here, followed by 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches, and then the width. So do some math to figure out the rest of everything. And then the back section is literally just this part right here. So if you can figure this guy out, it's pretty easy. Again, the dimensions you can find on some of the forums. And then the back section is just that put together, and they glue together. Check out my Kids Death Trooper build video for the belt if you're interested anymore in assembling those. But I have 3 of them right here, and we're going to go ahead and glue our covers onto those. So, and I'm just going to use just some super glue and accelerant because it's really easy. And all I do is I make sure everything fits the right way before I stick glue into there, because it's not going to come off once I do it. And that fits perfectly. So you can sand it first. If you don't, it sticks really well either way. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply a nice layer of glue. And put the top corner in first, just to make sure everything fits right. Because you want that top portion nice and glued in there. If the bottom doesn't exactly fit, you can always just trim the bottom. And even without accelerant, this stuff sticks so quick to plastic and fabric. The fabric that I'm using is Cordura 1000. You can get it online. It's fairly cheap. I got a yard of it for I think like $8. If you can find it in stores, go ahead. You can use duck cloth, I think, with these as well. But the stuff that the better stuff is the Cordura 1000. They sell Cordura 500. I'd go with the 1000 because it's a little more rigid. Forgot to put accelerate on it. That's it. One belt box. It's got a nice little loop on the back, and it's just going to slide right over the belt. Just like that. And they function. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to the other 2. You're going to need 3 boxes in total. So I'll go ahead and do that. This is the leather pouch. Again, you can buy these online. You can find the dimensions for this on the CRL. You can go search the boards for it. I just simply made this one out of leather and some super glue. but it follows the same basic concepts of the boxes I just made. You get 2 halves. Here's the flap, just a little bit different dimensions. My box is, I'll give you some dimensions real quick. The flap is roughly about 3 inches. This flat part, about 3 inches. The length of my box is 4 inches. About 4 inches. It is 1 inch wide, roughly. And the width is about 2 3/8 inches right here. So that's the dimensions that I built this to, and that is really nice. Put a snap on it. It looks great. I'm going to go ahead and put the same, I'm going to put one of these back onto the back section so I can put it through onto the belt, and go ahead and slide that guy on. And I have a holster as well. I'll show you guys kind of how I'm going to assemble that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple things, and we'll be back. Alright, so after just a little bit of cleanup, this is what my belt buckle looks like. I got rid of some of the little bits that were stuck in here from the casting. I gave it a nice sand down. I've planed everything fairly flat. Looks really nice. No weird edges or anything. And now I'm just going to rub and buff it. So I'm going to take my little sponge, some rub and buff, stick some rub and buff on there, and I'm going to work it in. And all rub and buff is just like, it's like a wax coating on the top, so it's not really adding any paint layers to it, and it just looks really, really nice when you get it done, because it makes it look like real metal. So instead of doing a paint job on it, and it looks painted, the rub and buff gives it just a really nice nice metal finish. This isn't quite done, but you can see where it gives it the kind of brushed metal look that I'm looking for on it. And then once it kind of dries, you can just buff it with like a shirt to make it even shinier if you wanted to. But that is your prerogative. And I'm just using the corner of the sponge to kind of work down into these little cracks. They can be a little difficult. Just smash your sponge into there. Don't use too much rub and buff. You really don't need it. Just work in little bits and take your time. Alright, the front looks pretty good. I like how that turned out. I think it looks really nice. I'm going to go ahead and get the edges. Don't worry too about the back, because the back's not going to be seen, and we're just going to glue that onto the belt here in a little bit. Alright, that's it. That's all there is to that. Got rub and buff all over my fingers. Don't touch your armor with rub and buff on it, or get the rub and buff all over your armar, unless that's what you're looking for. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get the cod piece real quick and the butt plate and show you how to strap those up, because we'll be attaching those to the belt in a minute. Alright, so I got my cod piece, I got my butt piece, and I got some nylon. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and glue a piece of nylon onto the cod piece. It doesn't really matter how long it is. My piece is about 3 3/4 inches. It could be 4, you know, whatever. And I'm just going to glue it right here. And I'm just going to glue kind of like the bottom kind of section of it. I want it to be just a little bit flappy. So it's not so rigid on yourself. Just like that. And I'm going to go around just the bottom edge again, just with a little bit of super glue to just kind of reinforce that piece, because it's probably going to be banging around a lot while you're out trooping. And that's it. So that piece is prepped. The butt plate, I'm going to do the same thing. I left this one a little bit longer because I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted it yet. This one's about 4.5 inches. And do the same thing. Just glue this guy. Alright, got that guy glued in there. And then we're going to put some Velcro on this side once we get the belt done. Alright, let me go ahead and grab some belt materials and we'll put together the physical part of the belt. Alright, so I got all my materials ready. I got all my pouches all glued together. I've got pretty much everything. I got my holster right here. I just built that from scratch. It's just a couple really small strips followed by a they said an elongated beer bottle looking piece of leather, a couple snaps, and that's going to go on the belt too. I've got my belt boxes with my wood blocks behind them, and I have my belt right here. It's just the ribbed car matting, so you're going to get this in your kit. You're going to get the cover parts. You're going to get these in your kit. You won't get any of the leather accessories in there, and you won't get any extra belt plastic. I'm doing this just to give my belt a little bit more reinforcement. You don't have to do this, so you can use just purely the flexible belt. I just wanted my belt to be a little bit more rigid. So my first step is I'm going to take my big piece of plastic, which matches up with my belt cutout, and I'm going to glue my belt onto my plastic. And I sanded both surfaces beforehand. And you want to make sure you do that, especially with this material, just because it doesn't like to stick to things. The rubber gasketing part of it. And we've ran into a bunch of problems with it so far, just things sticking to it. So like acetone washing is kind of needed, as well as sanding surfaces and everything else. So if you're going to do this, go ahead and pick up some plastic, give it a couple butt joints, and go ahead and glue it on. If you're not, no biggie, it won't affect the final product. I just want my belt to be a little more rigid than what's going to come in the kit. So I'm just gluing it just a little section by section. because I don't want to have glue all over the entire thing if I need to adjust it all. I want a little bit of playroom. So I glued just a portion of it, and then I'm going to peel it back and glue some more of it. And just work in segments. It's not a race. But now that I have it kind of on, it'll be a lot quicker to glue on too, because once you get the first little bit, you're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this permanent, so let's not mess it up. Once that accelerator is on it, it will not come up easily without destroying your belt. There you go, that is on. And then I'm just gonna move down the way. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll show you what's next. All right, I got that glued down nice and well to it. Next thing I'm gonna do, so this is the back side of it. It's obviously just plastic. This is going to be the forward side of it. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put on the mount that I'm gonna be using for the buckle. So all I did is I grabbed a scrap piece of plastic that's just a little bit smaller than the buckle itself. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it right in the center of my belt. Center it up the best you can. And now if you're not doing the plastic backer, you should at least do a backer on the back side of where this is. So you'd cut 2 strips like this, and then do what I'm about to do. Just because the belt's not going to sit right on a surface that curves. So you want to make a surface that doesn't curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up in the center, and then I'm going to drill 2 holes through it. Make sure my rivet fits. I might need to widen that a little bit more. Yeah, my bit's not as big as I'd want it to be. Should have grabbed a bigger bit, but I don't know where they all are. That fits through there. Manually widening that hole real quick. There we go. All right. Now that my rivet goes through, I'm going to go ahead and stick a rivet all the way through. And get a washer. Put that on the back. You know what? I'm gonna need a longer rivet. You want to make sure that it rivets all the way through. And my medium rivets are not working. Let me see if I can find a large rivet. All right, so I got my large rivet that fits all the way through. I'm gonna stick my washer on the back, take my rivet gun, and rivet this guy into place. Alright, I got one side on. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. I do one at a time just to make sure it lines up right. It's easy to align one hole. It's a little bit harder to align 2 holes, so that won't work. Alright, there we go. Stick another washer on the other side. Rivet gun. there we go. Nice and secured. You want to make sure you use washers because it's going to make sure it doesn't come out. So now that I have my surface all prepared, I'm going to, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to smash these with a hammer just to make sure everything sits real well. Just to make sure my rivets are holding right, I'm just going to there we go. Smash the back ends. That just makes sure that everything's gonna not come apart, because the rivet gun doesn't always do the best job. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna center up my belt buckle. The best way to kind of center it is to count the ribs and just trying to equal that out. So I got about what three or five gaps on either side. And then I just want to try and center that up the best that I can. So I'm going to go ahead and get my glue. And then I'm going to line it up again. And try and make it as straight as possible. Follow the ribs if you need to keep it straight. Now that it's on, I'm going to go ahead and accelerate this. Now, since we used rub and buff, I'm not going to touch this again until all that rub and buff all of the accelerators dry, because this rub and buff will come off the belt with the accelerant. If you don't touch it, it'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that to sit for a minute. And then I'll show you what's next. Alright, so I got everything riveted on. I went ahead and acetone washed both of my sides on the belt. You can acetone wash the whole belt if you want to. It'll make stuff stick to it better. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my Velcro. So what you want is you want to not get junk all over your belt. So the ribs over here are going to line up with your right side. So when it's on, it's going to be like this. And then when it secures in the back, you're going to want the part that flaps over to also go to your right hand side, just because one of our belt boxes is going to pretty much cover up that seam. So that's how you're going to want it. So make sure you play around with that. So I'm going to go ahead and put my hard Velcro on the underside of this part, so it'll allow me to do that. So I just got some hard Velcro and I'm going to stick it right onto here. Yeah. So as you can see, I got my hard Velcro just right here in the middle. I'll let that dry for just a minute or two and make sure it's all stuck. I probably should have sprayed it before I stuck that on, but it'll be fine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stick our soft-sided Velcro onto this side. You want to test fit this onto yourself before you do any final adjustments on this portion, but you're going to do the exact same thing. So I'm not going to put this on just right now, because I want to put all my put everything on and just test fit everything before I go ahead and put this portion on, because you want this to be as hidden as possible. So you're not going to want to put a ton on and you have like this huge section of soft Velcro you can see. So you want it to fairly line up, but it'll give you a little bit of playroom depending on how big this section of hard Velcro is. So if you need a little more adjustment room, put more over here and a little bit less over here, so that you can adjust in and out. Alright, so now for the buckle, when we're looking down at it, It's going to go, so I'm looking at the slits here on my left. It's going to go, let's see, look at my doll, make sure I got that right. Yep. So it's going to go belt box, and then it's going to go holster. Holster is going to go on, and then it's going to go a box, and then it's going to go another drop box. On the other side, it's going to go drop box, it's going to go leather pouch, and then it's going to go another box. So once you get this all fitted on right and figure out kind of where everything goes, these obviously all are going to be adjustable. These are not going to be with the block method because we're going to actually screw these on. So we're going to want to go ahead and test fit on everything before you go ahead and screw these on. Now you could alleviate that by just putting Velcro onto the back, just like we have here, and just basically making a loop over. But since these are smaller than the belt, you're going to see nylon sticking out on the sides. It's up to you how you want to do it. If you're pretty confident in your belt and your box placement, you can leave it where it is and just screw it on with the block on the back. If you're not and you want it to be adjustable, or if you want to be able to take it off, go ahead and put some Velcro back, or some nylon back there, and then you can adjust it on and off. It's up to you how you want to do it. I'm just gonna probably throw a couple screws through the whole thing and just mount it permanently. If you do that, you have to be aware that you won't be able to get these off anymore unless you secure these with snaps instead of rivets like I have them. So it's up to you what you want to do with it. But that is the belt. Alright, I thought I was done. I wasn't, so I'm just going to drop this into the middle of the video somewhere, so I apologize if this looks a little different than wherever I drop it. But I went through my pieces and I forgot a couple. One, the cod, and two, the butt plate. So what we're going to do with the cod is we're going to make sure you look at your pictures and everything. But the cod's going to go on the belt like this, right? Make sure you don't put it on the wrong side or your belt buckle will be faced the wrong way. So we're going to go ahead and put everything on just like this. So I'm going to flip my belt over, make sure I put it on the right end. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue this top portion onto it because I want it to be a little bit flappy. So if you glue the whole darn thing, it's going to be really rigid on there. I'm just going to glue maybe half an inch or so onto here. And then I'm just going to center it up and make sure that it's nice and centered with the belt buckle. And then you want this ridge right here that's on the cod to go right up to and over the bottom portion of the belt. And I'm just making sure everything's lined up before I put it down. All right. Now I'm going to go back over the outside edge of this with some more glue because I don't want it coming up. And again, just maybe about an inch, half an inch to an inch around it. So. There we go. That sits perfectly. All right. So now that I have that all glued on. The butt plate is, if you remember from the last portion, I glued this piece of nylon onto it. I'm going to go ahead and stick some soft-sided Velcro onto the outside portion of the butt plate right here. So I'm just going to glue that on. So we got that on. We're gonna take some hard side Velcro, and you can just lay it on top if you want to position it like this and have somebody else help you out. But we're gonna end up gluing this portion of the hard portion of the Velcro onto the underside of the belt. So when the belt, make sure this is dry before I put it on my skin. When the belt's all on, like so, obviously our cod piece is nice and in place. Our butt plate, obviously you want to sit over your butt. So you want to position that to where it's going to be on the underside of it. So, yep, that's all in frame. And then we want it to line up with the base portion of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully take this off. And with it still positioned exactly where I wanted it, which is darn near darn near the edge. I'm going to go ahead and glue that in right here on the back side of everything. Now I cut my hard side Velcro just a little bit bigger than my soft side just to give myself some adjustment room. You don't have to, but it might be advisable. So just in case your belt size moves up or down either way, you'll have a little bit of adjustment room for your butt plate without having to add more Velcro on later. Alright, and then the butt plate will fit perfectly right onto there. And then once everything's all on, you'll be good to go. That's the belt. I mean, just a couple more fitting things. I'm putting the Velcro over on this side, and then getting these things secured to it, however, which way I want to do it. And then you got yourself a belt. So if you're not already, please subscribe to my channel. We'll be putting out hopefully a bunch more tutorials on different builds here in the future, as well as finishing up this Death Trooper build, which we're getting pretty close to. If you're not following 850 Armor Works, go ahead and check them out on Facebook. I'll put a link below. But thanks for tuning in, and keep on watching. Thanks, guys.